BaconBit.
Joel, what's happening? Is that old Joel?
No. I like old Joel. Gather around, children.
All right, children. We're going to do a review of M. Night Shyamalan's latest movie.
Let's talk about the latest movie.
No, not Herbert. Hello, listener. We know this is a little bit late, but due to unforeseen circumstances, we were not able to see this until this week.
Yeah, we're sorry.
That's
just
okay.
1 week late, but it's a movie we were all able to see together, and it's such an iconic director with M. Night Shyamalan.
Yes.
This is newsworthy. This is buzzworthy for Baconsale.
Yes. So we at the beginning of this, we're going to be discussing M. Night Shyamalan's Old in a spoiler-free manner. We will then let you know we are going to spoil the movie and talk about all the craziness that happens.
My recommendation, stay for the spoiler section. It will entertain you a ton. We haven't even recorded the show, and I know it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, let's hope. Can you give the brief synopsis of Old, as according to IMDb?
A family on a tropical holiday discovers that the secluded beach where they are relaxing for a few hours is somehow causing them to age rapidly, reducing their entire lives into a single day.
Old.
This is loosely based on a graphic novel called Sandcastle.
Yes. And
is
graphic novel it is, from what I heard.
Yeah, Shyamalan doesn't do this a ton. Adapt things. I mean,
no, this is an unusual Shyamalan endeavor.
He loves his own projects. He did do The Last Airbender, which was definitely an adaptation.
And because of what he has received since then, he'll never do something like that again.
Hopefully not.
You mean Last Airbender?
Yeah. But here's the problem.
No.
Problem is that was because his kids were watching Avatar: Last Airbender, and he's like, "What's this? Oh, people like that? I'll do it.
I'll ruin that."
And then this one was one, I guess his daughter gave him the graphic novel for Father's Day.
Yeah.
And he read through it and went, I'm going to make a movie out of this. Which would be kind of weird. I wonder if their kids like pitch him things, like they give him presents, like books, like, hey, Dad, you should read this book I really like.
Yeah.
Like, hey, there's this cool show. It's called Sesame Street. He's like, I'm going to make a movie out of that.
Yeah.
But if I was one of his kids and then I pitched something that turned out to be The Happening or The Last Airbender, I'd feel real bad that the world hates my dad because
I wouldn't
of
put
it.
The Happening down there with The Last Airbender.
It's my least favorite.
The Happening is more than The Last Airbender?
You mean nothing?
We talked about it on the show.
Stranger in the Water is worse to me.
Lady in the Water.
That's the one. Stranger in the Water is totally different.
Let me ask you this.
It's a prequel.
Yeah.
Should M. Night Shyamalan's daughter, whoever gave him the graphic novel, should they be ashamed?
Let's talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, who wants to go first? Because we went and saw this all together. None of us had seen it before. This was on one of my most anticipated lists because for some reason, even though M. Night Shyamalan has burned me so many times, I keep being like, well, maybe this one will be good.
I'll go first.
Okay.
And let's talk about like the trailer first off, because more than any other Shyamalan movie, because it's been like 15 years since I paid attention to every one of his trailers. Like, what's this movie going to be about? What's the twist? I felt like the trailers gave away pretty much the movie.
Do you think he's tired of doing twists, by the way?
Yeah. And which is why I don't think there's a twist in this movie.
There is not a twist in this movie.
Not really.
Anybody who says there's a twist in this movie is incorrect.
Well, there's a reason in the movie that's not a twist.
There's a mystery that needs to be solved.
Totally.
But it's not a twist like, oh, I didn't see that coming.
Explanation of the mystery is not the twist.
Yes.
Right.
For example, Sixth Sense. Explaining why the kid can see dead people would not be a twist. That's not a twist.
It's true.
Now, figuring out what the actual twist is.
We still don't want to say.
There's an actual twist in this movie.
It came out in 1999.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of 1999, he did talk about, before this movie started, there was a brief commercial with M. Night Shyamalan.
At full volume.
Which was the scariest part of this movie.
Yeah.
And he said, thanks for coming back to the theaters. I've been doing movies for 20 years, and it's nice to have you back.
No. Here's what he said. Hi, I'm M. Night Shyamalan.
And we all gasped like, this is not a horror film. There is one scene. It's a horrific idea.
Yes.
But there's one scene of scares.
I'd say unsettling, not scary.
Yes. But there's one scene where you're like, oh.
There's a gross body horror scene.
Yeah, body horror.
Yeah.
But that is it. This is more of a concept film. And everyone who's seen the trailer knows the concept, and it's dramatic irony. You're waiting for the characters to figure it out.
To know the title, to see the poster, or to see the trailer is to know the entire movie.
And you know more than the characters do.
And you have to wait a while until they realize through all the exposition in this movie.
Yeah, you have to wade through a very simple screenplay that over-explains itself.
Because what works is how they age, what happens to them. Honestly, that is the stuff. I walked out of this movie going, wow, M. Night, what are you doing, man? Like that was unforgettable, but I think that was a bad move. And then I was like, wait a minute. I was not bored for 1 second in that movie. I was annoyed by the bad dialogue and the bad acting, kind of the clunky direction and cinematography. And I was like, that really wasn't very good. But then I thought about it more and more. And today I've been nonstop thinking about this movie and the way it played out, especially with the end, which is kind of cheesy, not getting into it. But I was like,
which end? Which ending?
Oh, before the crappy actual, like before
not the reveal, but the ending.
The real reveal for me worked.
Yeah,
is what I'm trying to say.
But then it was like a Lord of the Rings series, like, and now it ends. Oh, there's more, and now it ends. Oh, there's more.
Yeah, no. Before all that other stuff, the reveal worked for me, and so I was like, the way that story happened is pretty good because I enjoyed seeing the carnage, the aging, the sadness, the embracing every moment. I didn't enjoy the actors. I didn't enjoy the writing. This felt like M. Night Shyamalan's first movie, the way it was shot. There was a lot of kind of laziness and out of frame characters where I'm like, what are you doing?
And I actually watched him break down a scene, and he was proud of it. He's proud of it. Like, we're going to have these characters off frame here. And
it kind of reminded me of Army of the Dead, where Zack Snyder was given rights to the cinematography, and he's like, here's my choice. I'm wearing so many hats. That's what I'm going to keep on in the editing, right? And so I felt like he made a lot of mistakes there. It felt very almost indie, amateurish a bit.
They definitely tried to be tricky with the cinematography. The camera literally swings in circles a lot.
Yeah.
On purpose.
Yeah.
It's like anytime
it's like a clock.
The camera moves, it's a clock. It's meant to convey the passage of time.
Yeah.
But sometimes you just hear screaming and then characters kind of age. That said, this is a sloppy movie, but it felt like the Wild Mouse at Lagoon. It was a roller coaster, and I was like, oh, I hated that turn, and I hated that turn, but I'm still having fun, and I feel safe, and I feel like, this is kind of pointless, but I'm enjoying the ride. And so I got to the end, didn't like it. Today, I think I like this movie.
Weird.
Okay. Super weird.
That it's weird for you to change your mind like that.
Well, because this is the movie that requires you to think about it. I was talking to Zach after the movie, and I said, all I'm going to say about this is because we saw The Green Knight as well. I saw two movies that I will not forget about, because generally I go to a screening, I forget about it the second after because they're so bland. Mm-hmm. These are two movies, especially old, I will not forget about because it was so unique.
So what are you giving it?
C+.
Okay. What do you think, Joel?
Well, I'm surprised, Kent, honestly, because based on we try to stay very stoic in these screenings and not make comments or talk to each other, and we don't talk our reviews after, which drives me nuts because I just want to talk about the movie.
Sure.
But based on your reactions to the movie in the moment,
I was guffawed a few times.
I was like, oh, he didn't like this.
I wasn't liking it.
Right.
But I did you see me? I was leaning forward a lot going, what's going to happen
next?
Wanted
your back scratched.
Oh, well, thank you for scratching my back.
You're welcome.
But I was mostly like, I need to see what happens next because I was not bored. I was just kind of go ahead.
But I was.
Okay.
I was bored by many things in this movie because, as Zach has pointed out, as you have said,
exposition. And
the name of the movie is Old.
Yes.
The summary you just read explains you're on this beach that makes you grow old. In the trailer, you see that these people are on this beach where they're growing old rapidly. Mm-hmm. People in the movie, the characters in the movie, could not figure it out for the longest time. It was like they were holding back. Like the whole party is moving forward, and they're way back here, and then suddenly they run and jump to the biggest conclusion ever, which I'll get to in the spoiler section. But there's parts when they're just like, I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's going on. Oh, wait. This is exactly what's happening.
Is this why our fingernails and hair don't grow, too?
Yeah, this is the explanation.
Yeah, okay.
So it was just weird like that. They would suddenly just jump to these conclusions, and they don't talk or act like normal people would.
Did it feel like a stage production to you a little bit?
A little bit. But to me, it felt like there were different writers for every character, and none of them were talking to each other. Every character seemed to be talking in their own world and doing their own thing.
Did you notice that where someone would say, what's happening over here? The camera would pan away. 4 seconds later, Gael Garcia Bernal would be like, I don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
And you're like, was that just stiff acting or what was that?
The pacing was weird. And they would do these things where they would, I mean, for example, like I said, this is not a spoiler. They would show the over the shoulder of a character.
Yes.
And they would there'd be a person talking to this character and they'd be reacting. And I'm like, yeah, they look older. They look older. We know they look older. Why are you not showing the character? Everyone in the room knows that they're older. The character knows they're older. Let us see that they're older. Why are you still not showing us that they're older? Like, I was getting annoyed
I
with
think
that.
it's to save on makeup.
Well, but I mean, just like the part when they're doing the big reveal of like these younger characters who are suddenly older. Everyone knew.
There's one egregious scene. I know the one you're thinking about, and it's the one with Ken Leung. However you say his name. He plays a nurse, and his wife is the one who has epilepsy. That scene where he's talking, he's like, "How old are you? Like 6? Or how old are you? Like 11?"
Yeah.
He's like, "Well, no, I'm 6." He's like, "Nah, no."
This may be we're getting a little in spoiler territory there.
Okay. That to me is some of the worst dialogue I've ever heard.
It's unreal.
But his performance in particular, Ken Leung or whatever his name is, he's horrible in this movie.
But there's people.
Is he the worst one though?
Okay,
Yes,
there's characters. Like I said, the characters don't talk normal.
Because Sedan, what was his name?
Mid-sized Sedan.
Mid-sized Sedan was probably the worst one.
He was pretty bad. But no, there's parts where people would say things like, "My children are having a reaction. They're having a reaction. They're having a reaction." I'm like, just say they're getting older. There's something pretty obvious happening here. It's not a bee sting. Just say it. And that drove me. I felt like I was being trapped in this insane asylum where everyone's having their own conversations and no one is.
I think the movie
no one's communicating.
Was poorly trying to convey anxiety because there's a scene where, oh my gosh, there's a panic situation here, but you need to come look here. No, but there's a panic situation. And obviously, in any other real world situation, a doctor would be like, yes, I'll come check on you. But they wanted so many things to happen at once that it felt unnatural because they wanted you to feel anxious. They just didn't do it very well.
No, and it almost got annoying. Like if this were a 30-minute Twilight Zone episode,
actually an hour-long Twilight Zone episode or Black Mirror,
that'd be great.
Perfect.
They had to stretch the time here, which is weird considering this movie's about time passage. But they had to stretch this out to the point where I'm like, we get it. Can we move on to the next thing? No. By the
way, this is an hour and 48 minutes.
It kind of moves through the beginning fairly quickly.
But we already know the concept, though.
Yeah.
For me, it picked up, honestly, final third when the aging is so progressive. And that's the part where I'm like, hey, this roller coaster is actually, I'm kind of having some fun with this.
And I'll get into the spoiler full version a little more, but there were parts I was anticipating that didn't happen and things that I didn't see coming, but I didn't think were necessary. Like I said before, this is not scary. It's unsettling in parts, never scary. M. Night Shyamalan needs to stop putting himself in prominent roles, speaking roles. He can't be the crux, this hinged character. He can't do that.
He wasn't necessary and not very good either.
And then a parent's guide. There's one F word, kind of a throwaway F word in the middle of a conversation. And a bum.
A few scenes.
There's a bum and the implication of cess. Yes.
Oh, well, the result, maybe.
Hey,
trailer.
Spoiler.
Trailer.
Is that in the trailer?
Yes, it is. Like I said, the trailer gives away everything.
Anyway.
In fact, gives away too much.
In the end, I wanted to like this more. I didn't like it as much as I wanted to. This is a 2.5 for me. 2.5 stars out of 5, where
Fair.
I'm like almost liking it. And like I said, it could have been a good Black Mirror episode, hour-long Black Mirror episode or Twilight Zone episode.
Are you like me, though? You like the concept. You just think it was like super sloppy.
Concept was good.
Yes.
But then there was just clumsy exposition, confusing dialogue. Everyone's trying to be philosophical and deep. And I'm like, that's not how people talk. That's not how people would act in a situation like this. Like, having met people, that's not how they would act.
Yeah.
So,
like I said, Shyamalan is the best short storyteller. Sometimes he just needs to slow down or cut 30 minutes out.
Yeah. So there's mine, 2.5.
All right, Zach?
I really liked it.
Yeah.
I really liked it.
Did you like it last night after we left?
I actually got on the phone with Honey Mustard, and I said, I just watched 2 movies. I'm thinking so much about them because I don't know if we mentioned, we also saw The Green Knight on this same time. I just watched a couple of movies, including this M. Night Shyamalan movie, Old, and I think it was awesome.
Awesome?
Not awesome, but I was like, I honestly was super entertained by it.
Joel, you and I are kind of the anomaly here. This is a love it or hate it type movie.
I am much more in the loved it category.
Whereas you and I
They're
love
in the liked it category.
But C+,
I didn't like it.
You're like a C. I'm like a C+.
It's more like a C-.
Is it?
Like this wasn't a like. Three stars for me is like. This did not achieve that benchmark.
I get you.
I'm like between it's like a 7 and an 8, like a 7.5.
Okay,
really?
So
explain
tell us
why.
what you liked. Yeah.
I was entertained the whole time. I think it was more of a thriller. It's not a horror movie. It's not scary. And the concept is interesting, even though it's extremely simple. And I think that the way they go about it is just, I don't know, kind of simple enough to be very easy to grasp. And then the way that it is executed, I was satisfied with. Ultimately, like the explanation of what's going on, I'm like, oh, hey, nice. That actually makes sense.
The explanation was fine. I thought that was fine.
I feel like this will age well in his filmography. I know, right? Whereas something like Glass was a strikeout. I think this will be far better received in the long run. I prefer his
other geriatric thriller, The Visit.
Yeah, same.
I just think this movie is really straightforward, and I appreciate that.
Straightforward?
Yeah.
I agree.
I wouldn't give it straightforward. The plot is straightforward. The dialogue and acting are not.
No,
They're not.
I liked Rufus Sewell.
Oh, yeah, he's always consistent. His character is
really
great.
Yeah, apparently they filmed this during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic last year.
Okay, because very small cast,
and they
it's a
said
bottle
they had to
episode.
test him every day. But he said that like there was this sense of anxiety on set that then translated to the screen.
That makes sense.
And I was like, I guess I can get that.
I'm going to watch this again because I thought the character motivations were horrible, given like their professions and stuff like that. They try to over-explain what they do and who they are, right?
Yeah.
That's a big concept in the movie. And I don't want to get into spoilers, but I'm like, does that match the plot? Does that match the progression of the age?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, there's so much that doesn't make sense. There's so many holes in it. There's so many things that aren't that good. And we all like movies that are not that good. And I liked this movie.
And that's fine. I'm not going to hold it against anyone who likes this movie because for me, like I said, the story was fine. It was really, and I'm a big dialogue and acting. That's my thing I focus on. And I just wasn't there for me.
Yeah.
I got annoyed during this movie.
Oh, there's plenty I got annoyed with.
I liked watching Joel's face during one scene. We'll get to it. We'll get to it.
So
Are we there?
Yeah,
I'd say I'd give like a 7.5.
Okay.
I was really happy.
Written spoilers?
Let's do it.
These spoilers than you've ever been, and now it's even spoiler, and now it's even spoiler, and now it's even spoiler. Because it's old. Now you're even older. You're older than you've ever been, and now you're even older.
Well done.
We're
They
spoiling.
Might Be Giants?
They Might Be Giants.
Yeah, there we go. Okay. So there's some wacky stuff here.
Like, okay, so these we can get into a little more of the story now. If you're listening to this and haven't seen the movie, they are at this hotel and they're having marital problems, and then they get this invite to a special beach with a small group of people.
The couple that we are following, because there is not a main character in this movie.
There's not. You think it's Gael Garcia Bernal and his wife.
Yeah.
And the kids would maybe be...
Never bought their relationship, by the way.
Oh, no, it's really...
No.
It fell really flat. So I was talking to Emily, who we actually had on our Shyamalan Sons show. She saw this last night as well. And she was like... And she's a big fan of George Lucas, even prequels. And she's like, a lot of the dialogue was very George Lucas. Like, I found this on the internet. It was really easy to find. Because they're explaining something... And like you said, Zach, it's so simple the way they explain things... that is almost too simple. It's not how human beings communicate.
Well, so
basically, the guy who runs the hotel, this paradise, says, "Hey, let's go to this. I'll send you guys to the secret beach. It's super disclosed."
Isn't this the plot of Scooby-Doo?
Basically, yeah. I mean, this kind of is a Scooby-Doo.
But then
a couple different people get to go, different groups, and there is this rapper there as well, and his girlfriend just swam out. And you don't know this when it first happens, but clearly to
that's
escape.
the naked part, by the way.
Yeah, that's the naked part, which felt weird. Like I was like, why did she have
It was trailer fodder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a trailer shot.
Okay.
It's dumb.
I see what you did there.
Yeah.
Trailer.
Oh, okay.
Caboose. I see.
Yeah. And no, but he didn't know. She wasn't swimming away to get away from anything. She was just swimming.
Was she just swimming?
Yeah, because
he says
skinny dipping?
he was on a Zen trip.
Yeah,
It was supposed to be a
he
Zen
didn't know
trip.
what was going on there. So then they get there, and
'Cause he was dealing
we
with his
all know
health
they're
problems.
growing old, but then the whole time they're like, they're having a reaction. Someone's having a reaction. And I'm like, just say, my kids are getting older. Drove me nuts.
One thing
it starts with the grandma that's on there.
Yeah, the grandma dies, the dog dies.
The dog
because they're
dies.
getting older. And
the girl who was 6 or 5 in a few hours becomes pregnant.
whoa, just jumping right to that.
Can't we?
So, okay, there's 3 kids on the island. A 5-year-old girl, a 6-year-old boy, and then an 11-year-old girl.
Yeah, so 2 siblings and then another girl.
And then they grow up, and the mom's like, they're wearing their little swimsuit, and the mom's like, oh, I have an extra swimsuit in my bag.
Which I love that that wasn't a plot hole, that their swimsuits grew up with them.
Well, yeah, because the boy's like, yeah, my swimsuit's too tight, and then the girl like needs to change hers because she's like turns into a woman.
But why does the boy have an extra swimsuit?
Oh, he was wearing like a towel or something after that.
Oh yeah, because the boy was wearing a towel for some time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so but then they start doing these explanations where they kind of start figuring out that they're getting old. Mm-hmm. But then they say something like, well, how come our hair isn't growing or our fingernails are growing? They're like, maybe because they're already dead.
Their cells are not living.
And I went, well,
it's something that affects our living cells.
It just, to me, one of the signs of aging is graying hair. And none of the characters had graying hair. And I kept being like, well, why not? Oh, yeah, because they said that thing about the hair. But why?
No, but
why not have their hair go
gray?
gray?
And obviously, adults age slower or seem to age slower than children.
Right, but Gail Garcia Bernal,
he did by the end.
His hair wasn't gray.
Yeah, it was.
It was always dark.
Totally wrinkled. And, well,
his face was wrinkled.
It was
like,
salt and pepper.
No one's hair
They
got
actually
gray.
make that joke where they're like, hey, you guys, now you want to be black like us because you age slower, basically. I mean, everything Shyamalan did in this script was like, hey, people are going to throw, say there's this a plot hole, so let me explain the fingernail thing right now.
And they do.
Yes.
They do. They do that to each other.
Yeah.
And it drove me nuts because it was very clumsy.
It's dramatic irony.
So the big, it's not a twist, but the kind of the reveal is that this place, this cove, there is something.
It's magnetic rocks.
Which they find a journal that's like, perhaps there's magnets buried deep beneath the earth that cause us to age quickly. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah, you figure that out by sitting on a beach and aging?
Did you need that? Or would you have just accepted there's something wrong with the beach? Did you need a reason why the beach was aging that
Well, if it were presented as a theory, like it could have been this, it could have been this, it could have been this, it would have been fine. But they get this journal and read this explanation
specific.
that was M. Night Shyamalan going, hey, audience, here's what happened. And it's like, But anyway, this beach causes people to age very quickly. Like they say, like 7 years every 30 minutes or something like that.
Well, it's basically just aging enough to become a prominent young actor. And then they hang out there for a while.
It's so true because Thomasin McKenzie and Nett Wolff are featured for most of the movie.
Yeah. So then, but it come to find out, it's because these scientists are using it as a trial clinic for these drugs, these medicines that they're creating to be like, okay, we can put these in trial and get results in a day rather than years.
While they mourned these people, they were obviously, recruited without their knowledge.
Yeah.
Voluntold.
And bringing that back, it's when they arrive, they're like, based on your personal profile, here's a drink. And they're given experimental medication.
Yes.
So how did you guys feel about that?
I love it.
Twist.
That was good.
I think the explanation.
I agree.
I have no problem with that.
It is a great explanation for me because it immediately gave it moral ambiguity of like, that's so wrong, but like also that makes so much sense.
Because they say at the end, they're like, a moment of silence for those people that just passed. However, we had a breakthrough because the drug we used on this woman who has epilepsy, she didn't have a seizure for 16 years. So we basically said for the rest of her life, she didn't have a seizure.
So they're going to...
Because he only took that medication that one time.
They're going to improve the lives of millions of people, but they're sacrificing... They're in their 73rd group.
Because,
sacrifice.
And we should also mention this, everyone in the group that was invited to the island had something wrong with them, whether it be...
Though there is obviously
dementia,
collateral damage with kids and whatnot.
One person.
That is my big issue with it.
Of course.
Because I'm like, yes, maybe have... abduct them in the middle of the night and get the one person out there on the beach and don't present it as this family vacation, because why sacrifice the kids or the
They
grandma?
go into that a little bit, once again, over-explaining in the plot.
What was your explanation?
If your spouse goes off on a trip and never comes back, you're going to cause a whole fuss. But if the whole family goes and they erase your identity, then there's a problem.
They say it just has to happen.
The whole erasing identity thing I thought was a little weird too. I'm like, and it's never that clean.
Of course not.
Like if they have the group of people going to this vacation spot and everyone disappears.
Why did Guy not show up to work? That's weird.
Yeah. Well, here's the other thing. Why was the mom there in the first place? Didn't they say her tumor in her stomach was benign?
Yeah, but then it kept growing.
But it was benign on her medical records. So why did they flag her and bring her to the island if her tumor was benign?
Wait, was it benign?
She says it was benign.
But I think she was sick with something else, wasn't she?
No.
No.
Because they say it was supposed to be benign. And I'm like, yeah, so on her medical record it says benign. Why on earth was she there?
Obviously, once they were on the island, it grew to a point where it would have killed her.
They didn't know that when they invited her. Yeah. On her medical records, it says benign.
Unless it was a sort of situation where they did know. Because
if they told her it was benign?
It's all run by the pharmaceutical company.
When they cut the tumor out, which, by the way, I really like the concept of immediate healing because even though they're just kind of talking to each other, having conversations, where you can drink you don't have to drink water for a couple hours and you're fine. But when you like slice your arm or face, it's immediately just a scar.
Which, that was the weirdest thing to me. One of the weirdest things to me.
I kind of like that.
I like the concept too, but it was, once again, it was how people react. Because she gets this tumor that starts growing like the size of a softball in her gut.
Yeah.
And so they get the doctor. One of the guys there is a doctor, and so he gets some alcohol out, puts it on his pocket knife, and he cuts her open, and it seals back up. And instead of being like, "What the crap? Whoa! Everyone, let's pause and think about what's going on." They're like, "Cut her again. We'll stick our fingers in and hold it open."
Oh, it's growing around my fingers.
Yeah, and then
I was like, if they show a scene where fingers are inside the skin of another human being, I will freak out.
I had no idea, by the way, that tumors were so easy to remove.
Oh,
they're like, oh,
well, no,
it's growing. It's attached to muscle.
Yeah,
Not gonna pocket
it's
knife.
attached to muscle, and they're like, okay, take it out. Watching your face during that scene was so fun.
It reminded me of my wife's C-section. I'm not going to lie.
No.
It was weird. I had a weird flashback to that.
Yeah.
So that was just weird to me. The tumor thing.
So also the body horror scene where there's this woman she's so vain, and so worried.
She has a calcium deficiency.
Yes, and so
they tell you multiple times.
She gets injured in this cave. We're trying to get the help, even though she's delirious, trying to get the help of these kids or whatever 20-year-olds at this point.
Yeah. The 6-year-old that's really 20.
Her arms are breaking, and they break so much. It honestly felt like Japanese horror.
Yeah,
at one scene
it did, because her other mother almost
her arm breaks, but then instantly heals set incorrectly.
I wish, because I love horror, there was a movie that was better done, but with that concept.
Well, this movie was interesting because it was very afraid to show dead bodies. Like, there was a body that had decomposed. You never see it except for through the rib.
You'll see like a rib cage. Yes, exactly.
You don't from the you're looking out from the rib cage at the people. They never actually showed the body, and I'm like, wait, you'll show rear nudity, but you won't show a dead body?
Right.
Go with me here. The Descent, but the cave makes you old.
Ooh, see, that'd be good.
That'd be kind of fun.
Yeah.
We had the monsters there too in The Descent?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
also, they had this weird thing that I think the story is, they over-explained, and I guess it makes sense in the movie, but you can't escape this beach because, like, why wouldn't they climb or walk away? But it's so pressurized, quote unquote, that it's like you'd get the bends and black out if you try to escape.
Everyone who tries to walk through the Narrows back to the car, they end up getting a huge headache and stumbling out on the beach and blacking out every time.
but walking in wasn't a problem.
Right. No. Well, and that's just it. It's like, then one of the guys, he has this idea, because first of all, they don't figure out for a long time, and they jump to this huge conclusion of like, maybe it's pressurized, maybe we're getting the bends, maybe we need to walk out one step at a time and wait a couple minutes each step we take, and then we'll be fine. And then no one tries it. Not one person tried it, and I was like, that seemed like a good idea. Why is no one trying this instead of trying to swim out the other way because you were on the swim team?
Like 40 years ago.
You laughed at that, by the way.
I did laugh at that.
Yeah.
Like, at it. But yeah, I thought Rufus Sewell was the MVP of the movie.
Yep. He was the same note played over and over for me. Which, by the way, I found out the movie that was...
I looked it up, too. And by the way, it actually makes sense with like what his character is like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just felt it was the same key over and over again. I'm like, we get his character. Can we see what's going on elsewhere? Where does wife disappear off to? Oh, she's in a cave?
Yeah.
But like I said, the whole thing where they would not get it, and then like they're up there, like, there's something shining on the top of the ridge here. See, there's something shining, and then like an hour later, they're like, those are cameras, and I'm like, how did you figure out those are cameras?
See, that's one of those things where
because they knew it was shining off an ND filter on a lens.
Like that's where I think the movie isn't a movie full of twists, because the whole time they know they're being watched. They know it's a greater conspiracy that's not just nature.
Right.
There's no twist, just explanation.
Right. And so I want to jump to the end though, because you do have. Oh, go ahead.
We did talk about the baby, and we never talked about the baby.
Oh, so how did you guys feel about what happened to the baby?
That was almost Well, the whole concept of these two, the 5-year-old and 6-year-old, suddenly becoming teenagers. And then hanging out in a tent together.
They're consoling each other.
Yeah, they're hanging out in a tent together, and then they suddenly figure out what happened. They come out, and she's 5 months pregnant.
Their brains are growing.
Yeah.
So their brains are maturing. So many new thoughts, so many new feelings. So then they go through puberty, and then do puberty
I'm just saying, they don't know.
I don't know.
5 and 6-year-old, I don't think know how the birds and bees work.
They don't, but at the same time, they actually had it in the movie where his father said, we have this talk, son. We have this talk. He's like, I didn't think it would work. I think if you were to go through puberty in the matter of an hour, some crazy stuff would be happening.
Right. But when she came out pregnant, I could almost feel the audience kind of giggling at that. Like,
my gosh.
I think
It was
that was
crazy.
the shock value, I think, and especially with what happened to the baby.
Yeah, and all of a sudden they're like, the baby. You don't see the baby ever. You hear crying, and then you hear the crying stop, and they're like, it died probably
What's
because
that
of lack
movie?
of attention.
It's like, hey, you ever seen Blue Lagoon?
Cypher in the Snow.
Yeah, the baby died from lack of attention.
But
In moments?
But that's the thing is, a baby gestating in that environment, naturally, I would feel would adapt to that environment because it just grew that quickly, that fast. Of course, it's going to be able to deal with time in that time. So I felt like it was just one of those weird. Why did we do that?
Like Bella's
Yeah.
half vampire spawn. I get you.
Oh man. Okay, so let's jump to the end. So the brother and sister are the survivors of the movie because they swam through the coral, which was the gateway.
Which that was the magic message from this little boy had a friend who gave him coded messages.
I am glad they came back to that because when they were friends at the beginning of the movie, because there's just this random kid.
Yeah, the random kid at the hotel that the main boy befriends, and they give each other coded messages like
'Cause-
ice cream eating contest tomorrow.
Yeah.
My dad hates coral.
But I was
If he-
Those are the two messages he got.
If he had looked at that message like a day sooner,
everyone would have been fine.
everyone would have been fine.
But I'm glad they came around to that. I honestly may not have needed the brother and sister to be alive.
I'm okay with them being alive and showing up. What I didn't need was the explanation. Because then they show them, like they say, they think they die in the coral, so they're like, okay, good, we don't want any loose ends. Then they show up at the hotel and they give a cop the journal that has the names of all these people that disappeared, and I'm like, oh, that's the ending. And then it shows how they escaped from the coral. I'm like, we know they survived. They're here.
And then it does like a Jurassic Park ending where they're on the helicopter over the island, like, well, you didn't age 50 years in a couple hours.
Yeah, it's like the previously on Old, where they go back and show that was silly, and then it just completely unnecessary. I really would have preferred the Twilight Zone ending of everybody dies on the island. You figure
And
out
there's a
why,
study.
and honestly, you're like,
But who's
I'm
going
kind of
in and
okay with
clearing
it.
the stuff off each time? Because they find that little alcove of like shoes and utensils and stuff like that back there. Who's clearing all that off?
I think the tide goes high enough because they find
it because
they find all that.
It
stuff.
was all in a row, all the utensils.
Well,
and
it
everything.
seemed like it was pushed back there.
Yeah,
It's just tide pushes it up.
Also, when the crazy doctor was slashing at the dad, who's sitting next to a fire,
yeah.
I kept being like, "Pick up a flaming stick, you moron!" That drove me nuts.
Yeah.
DC?
There wasn't much threat though because every time he got slashed, it just healed itself.
It did, but that was one of those things too where that went on too long, and then the wife cuts him with a rusty blade, and he
couldn't see what was going on.
He starts, but I mean, he could have picked up a flame and waved it around.
I guess.
Yeah.
But then, like, that went on too long, and then the wife grabs a rusty blade and cuts the crazy doctor.
Yeah.
And he starts getting an infection, and then she explains to him what's happening because M. Night Shyamalan had to explain in that moment what was happening. No one would do that. And then what should have happened? She cuts him. It spreads. He dies very quickly. He should have died very quickly, but that was a very prolonged death. I felt that was almost
that
gratuitous.
was the money shot though. That
It
was
was.
like let's see the age happen immediately.
That was the climax of the movie in M. Night Shyamalan's eyes. But what she should have done is then I can never say his name. Like Gael Garcia Bernal.
Yeah.
He should have said, "Why didn't he heal?" And then she would have said, "Like it's rust."
Yeah.
That would have been a
even
better,
the parts-
less clumsy way of doing
Even the
it.
parts where he's like, I can't see, go tell the kids to hide. It's like, go tell our 25-year-old son to attack this man who is trying to stab
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, they Chekhov's gun the rusty silverware.
They not only do they Chekhov's gun it, they explain what the gun looked like, how
No.
they made it.
And I liked that. I liked that the rust, that was the way to do it, so it wouldn't heal. That made perfect sense to me. It was just that she explained it as it was happening, and then he took forever to die after that.
Because she literally already explained it earlier. Because she
Yeah.
says, "Don't touch the rust; you'll get an infection."
Yeah. Which I don't want to poke holes in this movie. Wait, yes I do. Because if you cut open someone's abdomen and then didn't stitch it together or use, any sort of thing to heal it up, why wouldn't it get infected? Like it just heals up like right back together, but like that's not passage of time. If I had an open gaping wound in my gut and didn't do anything, there'd be an abscess.
I have a scar on my knee actually where I was impaled by a stick, a giant stick, sticking out of a log, and I cleaned it a little bit, but it just healed over naturally. I never got stitches. That's a personal
That
story.
explains so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
my collarbone is broken, and I didn't like fix it, and so it just healed.
I'm
weird.
just saying if they're going to have it like, it cuts heal quickly. If they're little cuts, sure, but that was a gaping open wound.
with fingers in it.
Yeah.
Got their fingies all up in there.
So anyway, my rant's over. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, like the rant is necessary because the movie makes you go, Why? Why are you doing this?
Yeah.
I still like it. I don't know why.
No, it's worth liking
fun.
and it's worth hating. Like
if it were a short like Black Mirror Twilight Zone episode, I think I would have been much more like, whoa.
Like, don't you want M. Night Shyamalan to do a new Twilight Zone and have that be the first episode and it's 1 hour long?
Be fine with that.
And I think it ends without the siblings showing up.
Totally. I'm still okay.
Like
I was
that
actually okay with the siblings showing up and kind of like messing things up like that. But I think it should have ended with them giving the cop the journal. Like, what are you giving that for? And them showing up and saying, they've stolen us. You know, these are all people who disappeared. And then you see the cop on the phone. Boom.
Do you feel satisfied by that? Because that means
fine.
the whole operation is being shut down. That means it's all
I
done.
think the whole thing should be public anyway. This should have been an advertised thing. Like,
Who would volunteer to give up their life in a day?
But I mean, think about it. If you
Dr.
were like,
Kevorkian
you're like,
people?
okay, we have this experimental treatment we can give you, and we can, like,
And it would save this many people.
Well, no, even then, you're like, if you have this terminal illness, we can give you this experimental drug and stay in this place, and you won't have a prolonged.
You can live
death.
the rest of your life in a day.
You can have a day done. You can say goodbye and just have it over with. People would do that. Or idiots on the internet. If you're like, hey, go to this beach and you'll get older.
Oh, they would.
They totally would. And you get like, spring breakers, like rappelling down in there. Mm-hmm. But I just feel like they should have gone more public with this because I think people would have been more open to this. Or instead of kidnapping people and sacrificing children and dogs.
Can we talk about the implications of the Jurassic Park ending, though? So they're flying away on a helicopter. This now 50-year-old, 6-year-old.
Yeah.
Is like, hey, you don't know anything about like math or science. I don't know about you probably have a 6-year-old kid somewhere in there, Joel. They can't read that great.
No.
So that adult,
although he
in
was a
for
precocious little child.
He was. That adult is in for a hard life.
Yeah. It was a good concept. I just think it was poorly executed.
It's a very good concept, but sloppy.
Which it wasn't even his concept.
No.
Although I hear the graphic novel is
it plays out a little different.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Kind of saucy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, pass on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So if you have seen Old, because it has been out for a week, please let us know on social media what you thought.
Yeah, let us know your thoughts. We try to keep things pretty spoiler free in the comments, but you can always DM Baconsale and give us spoilers there, and we'll happily discuss it with you.
Yeah.
So there you go. There's our review of Old. Feels like we've been talking about it for ages. I see what you did there.
Yeah.
Trailer.